think it's very hard to pick one player in the squad that kind of pushes me and anyone else more than any other. I think we are very fortunate in the position that we have guys that are always trying to set new standards and keep them very high. So you can't look too far beyond someone like Fergus McFadden or someone like Owen Redden, who are constantly, anytime you see them, they seem to have a beat on them. I think we're just very fortunate that we've had a taste of success, and that has made people selfish for more success rather than being satisfied with what they've already achieved. There hasn't really been any difference in training. If anything, I think, again, as I mentioned, the standards are driven further and further, and we just expect a little bit more out of ourselves rather than being content with where we've gone before. We want to achieve something that no one else has done before, and trying to win 3 Heineken Cups on the trot. Yeah, we're in a very tough situation at the moment in our pool, but we're certainly not going to go out without a major fight. Probably in any professional's life, the biggest hurdle to overcome is injury. It's the disappointment of it first of all, and then dealing with it, and then refocusing to try and make sure you can come back stronger, whatever the length of time that might take. So I've had a bit of experience. Thankfully, not too many long-term injuries. But I think it probably, when you're away from things and you're looking in, it probably drives that hunger and desire a little bit more to be back involved, and you're missing out on the fun in the dressing room and out in the pitch and all those training sessions. When you're training on your own, it can be a difficult time. So it certainly encourages you to get the injury sorted sooner rather than later, to make sure you're back in the mix and enjoying playing in front of great crowds, as we're lucky enough to do week on week. The most difficult moment, mentally, I think, is probably watching a game that you maybe could have been involved in, and you feel as though you could give the team a dig out. That's the hard thing about injury, is that it's a no-win situation. If the team are going well, they're not missing you, and if they're struggling in some capacity, you feel as though you could help them get back on track. So it's a real no-winner, and that's probably the toughest part, because I know the stresses of watching a game are so much superior to those stresses you feel on the pitch, because you have a say in the outcome, and that gives you a bit of inner peace, if you like. I think the split of talent to practice is probably, I think it, depending on the individual, but give me the hard worker ahead of the talented individual any day. The guy that is willing to put his body on the line mightn't be as good as someone else, but if he's mentally strong and willing to have the work ethic and the fight and the desire, Janie, he's the sort of guy you want in the trenches with you when the going gets tough. So I don't think you can really put a percentage on it. It's that type of player, and it's a bonus if you have a guy super talented that has that mentality as well. And I think we are in the fortunate situation here in Leinster that we have plenty of guys with that mentality. The one person in the world I'd like to meet, I don't really have one person that jumps out. I always wanted to meet Bruce Springsteen, because he was a hero of mine, and I got to do that a couple of years ago. So beyond him, I don't really have anyone that springs to mind. I've been fortunate to meet the couple of heroes I've had, and they've turned out to be great people, and it puts to bed the thought of never meet your heroes. Mine have been great. If I had a superpower, I would undoubtedly use it on the pitch. Anything to get the edge. It's probably my favourite animated film, The Incredibles, and having to shelve a superpower must be painful. So I encourage people to if they have superpowers, use them where possible. I did have a lucky under vest that I wore for the last I'd say 6 or 7 years, and I lost it after the Heineken Cup final this year. And then we went and lost the Rabo final, and then we lost 3 games in New Zealand, and I thought, oh no. But then we went and I played 6 games this year, and we won the 6 of them, so that put paid to that. So the best provincial memory probably goes back to winning the Heineken Cup for the first time in Murrayfield against Leicester. I think it was probably just the culmination of all the hard work and the disappointments through the years to that moment of that elation and knowing that you were going to be at least a one-time Heineken Cup winner was a very special feeling, and then to have been able to go on and do it a couple more times has been great. And from a national point of view, it's hard to look back to a greater occasion than when we hosted England in Croke Park in 2007, and the whole country watched us. The player I'd most like to play against, again, a difficult one. I've played against a lot of really top class players. I think guys that get nominated for World Player of the Year, invariably I've gotten to play against most of them. So I always enjoy playing against the best players. So the Dan Carters and the Richie McCaws in the world. It's just a case of really testing yourself and how good you are, because it's only when you play those really quality teams, those quality players, do you really get to understand how much ability you have and how deep you can dig. A new rule. Well, there's so many rule changes in our game as is. I don't think people need another rule change from me, but there's definitely the frustration of time spent at scrummage, and I do think that it has improved vastly this year. But if you could guarantee one thing, would be more consistency at scrum time and referee knowledge. I think in a lot of cases they start balancing things up, not really knowing what's going on. At least that's what our front rowers tell us, and who might argue with them. It's a really difficult one when you're asked who would you like to play in a movie. You always want to pick someone that's fabulous looking, but I'm a realist. Whatever, I'll go with Leonardo DiCaprio because he's a wonderful actor, and only because he's a wonderful actor. I'm not really that big a cheese eater. I have to be a bit careful on dairy, not to take too much on board. Yeah, we have Yops in the fridge in the team room for just getting a quick little energy hit into you after a session. So if I don't get a chance to eat, I'll probably get one of those into me, or an Actimel in the morning. I do like. Toughest opponents, probably because I think he was the best player that I played against. A guy that I got my first cap against, Tim Horn, was a hero of mine when I was growing up, and a phenomenal rugby player and a great rugby brain. And I was lucky to have played against him, I think, on 3 occasions, and I always found him. I don't think I've come across better since playing back in the late 90s against him. So if I pick one person, I'd say him. My favourite city in the world, without a shadow of a doubt, is New York. Leinster player most likely to crush walnuts with their thighs. I think if Rossi sat down on it, he'd probably be able to crush it. But for pure, unadulterated strength, I'd have to go with Cian Healy. Him or Owen Redden.